Welcome. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and we're delighted that you have invited us into your home. You're an important part of the family, and we want to hear from you. So we want you to give us a jingle at 205-271-2971 or call 1-800-221-9460. You can always send us an email, jimandjoy@ewtn.com. And I'm really excited about our show today because it's close to our hearts. We're going to have two great guests. We're going to tell you about our guests in a little while. But so much to do about life and marriage and family and just where
Tell me now, it's Janet
we
Morana
have Janet Morana and Father Stephen,
Imbarrato.
right? And they're both from Priests for Life. And Janet is the executive director of Priests for Life, and Father Stephen Imbarrato is a priest associate with Priests for Life. And they are in town this week, and they were filming Defending the Life series, really educating us, empowering us to do something, right? It's not enough that we know what we believe, but then what do we do with what we believe? And Priests for Life and Defending Life is doing some unbelievable work. So I'm real excited. It's real close to our heart.
Just to focus upon the sanctity of life, to say those words, that every human life is sacred, of inestimable worth, value, and dignity. Do you believe that? That's you. You know, we often believe that about others. You can look at other people and say, they have a sacred life. But then we look at ourselves and we kind of wonder. No, every life, this is the message, every life is sacred from the womb till the end of life and on into eternity. And isn't this the solution for the ills of the world?
Yes.
That we should not kill innocent human beings? We shouldn't consort in the killing of innocent human beings. We shouldn't look the other way. That if we would just say every life is sacred and we shouldn't shed innocent blood, this world would be transformed. So we pray to God that this sacredness of life would be embraced by all of us, by everyone, no matter what religion, background, no religion at all. You don't have to be religious to understand. It's written upon our hearts that human life is different, that we're sacred. As our bishops say, that it's the foundation of the house regarding the life issues. Or some people say, you're a single issue person. Well, I believe in a lot of issues. I believe in all of the life issues, but there is a foundation to the house, and that's the right to life, the right to exist, the right to be. And every other life issue is built upon that foundation. I didn't always know that. You know, I did see a lot of the issues as the same in terms of weight, but they are interrelated. But this one, the right to life, the right not to be killed, the right to be protected by law and welcomed into life. It's a beautiful thing. Now, Priests for Life, we're going to be sharing more about that great ministry. They have such a beautiful apostolate and ministry. We're going to hear all about it, but it's so comprehensive, Joy, and people. And they really get this message across that we're speaking about every life, that baby in the womb, those at the end of life, the handicapped, the infirm, the weak, the helpless, the strong, all people, those who've had abortions. Maybe you're watching today and you just hear the term abortion and it strikes something in your heart because maybe you had an abortion. Maybe you're experiencing lost fatherhood. Maybe your grandma or grandpa, you paid for an abortion. Or maybe you said, hey, I wouldn't do that, but it's your choice, and then somebody went ahead. You're still sacred. The gospel of life is for you, and you could become one of the most eloquent spokespersons on behalf of the gospel of life. Maybe you're out there today. Maybe it's your child, it's your grandchild that's pregnant. You heard about this, they're in a crisis pregnancy. You can call 1-800-712-HELP. 1-800-712-HELP, or go to optionline.org and you can get help. You'll hear about thousands of crisis pregnancy centers, pregnancy medical centers throughout the country who can help you. Or maybe you said, it's too late for me, I had an abortion. It's not too late for forgiveness. It's not too late for healing.
And the truth is always the truth, and the truth wants to heal us. And Jesus is the truth. And so it's so important that we know this journey that we're on. We may have made a poor life choice, but that's not the end of the story. And the devil would come up alongside of you and condemn you and, you know, torment you literally with guilt and shame and judgment and self-hate and keep you trapped so that you can't get out of that.
In this year of mercy, God especially wants you to know of his mercy, and that those who are forgiven much, right, you love much. And so you are a perfect candidate. Those who are aware of their sins, of the mercy and grace of God, and those who are brokenhearted oftentimes are the most eloquent spokespersons on behalf of life. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Janet Morana and Father Steve. It's going to be a wonderful, holy time. You're going to be encouraged. You're going to be activated because every Catholic, every Christian is called to be a missionary of the gospel of life, and you're sent by God to evangelize this world. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Hey, we always get trumped by him. Welcome back. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and we want to hear from you. So send us an email, jimandjoy@ewtn.com. Well, right now we have lovely guests for you, Janet Morana and Father Stephen Imbarrato, and they're both from Priests for Life, and neither of them are strangers to our viewers and family at home. Janet's with Catholic View for Women, and you both have done Defending Life before. Right. And you preached this morning, Father. You did a wonderful job. Thank you. Wonderful. And so we want to welcome you. Janet, you've been on At Home with Jim and Joy. You came on with the Catholic View for Women. And the three of you sat on that couch.
Yes.
I never got to speak.
And you never got to speak that whole show.
Jim was silent.
It was a quick-paced show. It was fun.
It was.
So, but tell us about the great work that you're doing and what you were doing here in town this week. And then we want Father Stephen to share his story.
And bring us up to date on your family.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, my family, of course, keeps growing. I'm a nana to three beautiful grandchildren. We have Lily Grace is 4.5, and Lucas James is 3.5, and their parents are my daughter Jennifer and her husband Austin. And then they live in Staten Island, New York. And then the sad thing is I have my other daughter, my other grandbaby's all the way out in California, in LA. And that's my daughter Tara Lynn and her husband Craig, and Vivian Rose. And that was very special because I got to be in the labor and delivery room with them. And I got to see that grandbaby born. And it was, there's nothing, you just can't. Yeah. I actually teased him. I said, I saw her before you did, because I was holding her leg, so I got to see little Vivian Rose the first moment, and so special.
I tell all my children that too, because I did. I saw all the children before Joy did. I was there with her, but I could see them coming out. It's amazing how I look at them now, and I still see them that way. I see them, I always see them like, I look at them. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm saying, you can't believe what I'm saying.
So being a grandmother now is amazing. I just love it. And it's just another phase of your life. Right. But of course, I still stay active with the work for Priests for Life. And with, of course, Silent No More awareness campaign, it keeps growing. Of course, we were just together up in Canada. EWTN did an amazing job filming the testimonies, and we're so grateful for that. And, of course, the campaign has expanded now into with the shockwaves, healing the shockwaves of abortion. People can go to abortionshockwaves.com because, at the epicenter is the death of that child. The mother and father are affected, but like we just said, grandparents are affected. Whether the grandparents knew about the abortion, maybe that mother or father insisted that their daughter have the abortion or didn't even know, and then there's the siblings, the future siblings, and the whole family, the whole society is affected, and that's the message we're trying to get out there, that every child that is killed from an abortion, it has a ripple effect throughout society.
And it's so important to tell everyone that we have all been affected.
Yes.
I mean, all of us have been affected, whether you have participated in abortion, because there are 57 million babies less on this planet.
That's right.
People that we were to love and serve and know and be.
That's just America.
Right? And to be, and that's just in the United States, to have those encounters with, and so we're all robbed. The whole nation gets robbed when we do that.
Let's bring Father Steve on board here. He's sitting patiently and
waiting for Janet to be quiet.
We want to hear about
filming with Janet. I'm used to sitting there patiently and quietly.
You've been co-hosting with Janet on Defending Life, great EWTN pro-life show.
The spring series is going on now, and we just taped the fall series.
Wonderful,
yeah.
Wonderful.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Father, share with us just your own story or some of your story about how you became so committed to the sanctity of life and promoting life and defending life, and your work as a priest and your close association for many years with Priests for Life and Father Frank Pavone. And share.
Right. As much as I came officially on board full-time this past June, it's been almost a year. I've known Father Frank, I guess, right before I went to the seminary. I entered the seminary in September of 2000, met Father Frank at a discernment retreat, and I must say that at that retreat, I really was still discerning as to whether I really should be going to the seminary. I was 48 years old, been doing pro-life work for a few years at that point. And that weekend, I think, solidified my mind that at least going to the seminary was the right thing to do. And it was very soon after that I realized that the priesthood is where our Lord was calling me. And I was with Priests for Life, actually running their seminarian outreach for about 3 years while I was in the seminary.
Seminarians for Life?
Yes, Seminarians for Life, and it was originally Seminarian Life League, and I was integral in actually changing the name during that period of time. Ran retreats with Janet, and I felt like I'm part of the Priests for Life family since then. So I've been on full-time since June. My pro-life mindset really goes back to probably the mid-'80s when I started thinking about adopting a little boy. When I was single, I adopted a little boy. Spoke about it at Mass this morning. Unfortunately, just 2 years ago, he took his own life, left his wife and my 4 beautiful grandchildren. So I always ask for prayers of everybody for John. And but I think the beginning was, of course, my complicity in an abortion. In a couple of years after Roe versus Wade became legal, I was away from the church, away from the sacraments, living with a woman. I got her pregnant, and of course, subtly convinced her to have the abortion. It was the right thing to do, the good thing to do, because of the situation we're in. I mean, a convenience in our lives, and the baby being inconvenient. And I came to the realization years later after we split up, and we split up amicably, that she had that abortion for me. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't until I was in the seminary that I really came to the realization. And so I asked my spiritual director if I could look her up. We had mutual friends. I looked her up and apologized to her. And at that point, I found out that it was actually twins that were aborted. She had kept that secret for years and years and years. And so at that point, I realized that I had to heal again from a second baby. We named the babies Thomas and Mary. And then also from wounding her, right? Wounding her and not standing up for her. And I think that really it was this idea of knowing that I was guilty and really contemplating the reality of abortion every single day of my life that slowly but surely led me to adopting John, maybe an effort to even replace the child that I let go, not knowing then that it was 2 children. And then, of course, the adoption absolutely in raising John led me to pro-life activism in the early 90s, and then that led me to the seminary.
Wow.
And Father Stephen was the first man to give testimony in Washington, D.C. for Silent No More.
That's right.
And he was the first one to hold that sign, I regret lost fatherhood. So it was really Father Stephen who almost stood for all the men that first year. And the women were so impacted because he was speaking for all those boyfriends or husbands who weren't no longer with these women. And it was very impactful. And it was like Father Stephen called out the other men, come on. Come be healed. Join us, you know. And since then, we have so many more men now coming to the campaign.
And really, I mean, it's the acknowledgement of lost fatherhood, because men innocently just go, "I had nothing to do with it," you know, and it's what she wanted to do, and I wanted to support her, or even if I took her and paid for it and all that, they just kind of like scoot out and like they're not affected.
I always reference it as the sin of Adam, right? When the serpent came to tempt Eve, Adam was there, did not do anything to intervene, and then Eve eats the fruit. I think that Adam was watching, and when she ate the fruit and didn't die, he said, give me some of that fruit. And then, of course, not intervening, not protecting Eve, not standing up for her. What happens later on when God comes looking for them, right? He blames Eve and God, right? The woman you sent me. And this is what we're dealing with today for the most part. There are men who are just as much victims of of women who go and have abortions without their knowledge or against their will, but the overwhelming majority of the cases are exactly as I did. Exactly as I did. The sin of Adam, the original sin, not standing up for the women we love.
We thank you so much for sharing your story, and we're so sorry for your loss. And it is difficult to share, you know, from a number of angles, just personally your own experience. But so many women just say, well, we don't want to hear anything from men. And maybe there's some men that don't want to hear. But you've received the mercy, the grace, the forgiveness of God. I mean, you understand this in a way that's just absolutely phenomenal, incredible. And look how God takes evil and turns it to good. He takes the curse, turns it into a blessing. Death, He turns it into life. Makes you a priest.
The first time I ever preached as a deacon in Santa Fe about my personal story. And I'm preaching, and there's two women, one on this side and one on this side, sobbing during the homily, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my Lord, I'm in trouble, right? I upset these two women. And one woman was in her husband's shoulder crying. And so I finished the homily, we finished the mass, we go outside, and both of those women came up to me, gave me these deep hugs and said, thank you, thank you, thank you. I had an abortion, and I've been waiting years for you know, the man to step up and say, hey, it was my fault, I'm sorry.
Right. And that was the reaction of the women from Silent No More when Father first gave his testimony. But then now every year we have more and more men. And then last year, for the first time, we had Dr. Tony Levicino, former abortionist, and he held that sign. You know, I regret performing abortions. The women, and their first reaction was, we don't know how we're going to feel next to a guy who did abortions. But the healing that took place for him and for them, it was incredible to watch. It really was, you know.
And as we left today, I was leaving the center. We had a client in room 2, and she wanted to have suction and curettage, and we pulled up his the YouTube thing where he shares. And so we got to explain the whole thing, pull it up, and the client was encountering his beautiful story and that whole procedure. With a great hope. I left, and as it was going on, she was getting ready to get her ultrasound.
And just for our viewing audience, again, that's our pregnancy medical center.
That's
but
right.
sometimes these women get our place confused with an abortion center. So they come in and they say that they want an abortion. And we listen and we love them and we share and say, hey, do you know what abortion really is and what it does? And we share with them. And we find if we could just have the conversation, we say this very often, if we could just have a conversation, that's the problem. So many considering abortion, think it's the only route possible. They're not having a conversation with somebody else who's loving, who says every resource, you know, can be there for you. If we have the conversation, we win 80% of the time.
Oh, sure.
The 20% is really difficult, but we'll win more frequently than we will lose that person or the child. And then those women know they can come back, you know, for healing.
You know, you listen to the testimonies. Those women had their abortion not out of freedom of choice. They had it because they had no other choice. That's how they felt at the time. You know, but I also want, if someone's watching right now and they need help for, you know, having had an abortion, they want to take that step, we have a nice search engine on our Silent No More website. The direct page is abortionforgiveness.com.
Abortionforgiveness.com.
And they just go there, you put in your zip code, and you can see where's the nearest Rachel's Vineyard, where are the pregnancy centers that have an abortion recovery program, where is there Christian counselors. So we have it all like that. So abortionforgiveness.com, the help is for anyone.
And I want to remind the men out there that these Rachel Vineyard, Silent No More, all of these healing ministries are not just for the women.
That's right.
Because all of us men, regardless of the situations I described, are wounded by abortion. And we need to seek healing. We need to seek Christ's mercy. And I'd like to make a quick disclaimer for those who are watching, because there are people I know, I've experienced this, are sitting here saying, well, wait a minute, you know, a priest, all right, how does he become a priest after an abortion? You know, well, the church doesn't just say, oh, well, you had an abortion, no big deal, right? You can become a priest, right? It is an irregularity to ordination. It is an impediment, and there has to be a dispensation. And any priest in this situation, and a little different than mine, because mine was in the external form. I was already giving my witness. but you have to apply to Rome and tell them the whole story. But this is also an indication of the mercy of the church, the mercy of Jesus through the church, that you can get this impediment lifted and get ordained.
Thank you so much. We're going to take a break at this point. We'll be back with Janet and Father Steve again, sharing about the sanctity of human life through one of the great ministries in the world, Priests for Life. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Well, welcome back. You're at home with Jim and Joy. We're speaking with Father Stephen and Janet Morana with Priests for Life. So many ministries, family and ministries at Priests for Life, but kind of what's the hot thing going on right now in the pro-life movement throughout the country? I think I got some idea.
Well, yeah, it's the election, the election, the election. I think that's what we hear ad nauseum, right? Every time you turn on the TV. But at Priests for Life, you know, we have a special website set up called politicalresponsibility.com. It's all C3 friendly, it's all in line with the church's teaching, and it will help people know exactly what they can do in this important election year. We have a Vote for Life campaign where we want people to sign up and get involved. We're going to have trainings to get out the vote and to educate people so that we can get more pro-life and God-fearing people in office. And from the president on down, you know, this is an important election year. We have president, we have the entire House is being replaced, you know, voted over for, a third of the Senate, and then your local races, you know. And one seat from the Supreme Court will definitely be appointed by the next president, which will be replace wonderful Justice Anton Scalia. But there might be at least 2 or 3 other appointments because a lot of the justices are getting elderly. And so there's a lot at stake. When a president comes into office, it's not just him, it's about 7,000 people at the federal level, jobs he puts in. So if there's a change in Washington, we'll have a change in policy. And when you think about it, we have that HHS mandate,
Right.
not because Congress voted Obamacare, it was Obama instructed HHS to expand it. And of course, we're all, and as you know, our case was vacated, and we're waiting now for something to be worked out, but we're not going to compromise. And people want to keep track of that. They just go to istandwithpfl.com and they'll know, as we know, they'll get the news, you know.
The Priests for Life case, that was before the Supreme Court?
Yes, it was.
And then now they've gone to the appellate court where it was, then it went up to the Supreme Court, and they're saying to that appellate court regarding Priests for Life case and several other cases, what? What are they saying to them?
Well, basically what they said was, well, the oral arguments were on March 23rd, that in April they asked all the 7 petitioners, it's Priests for Life, there's 7 of them, Little Sisters, Archdiocese of Washington, Pittsburgh, and so on. And then there's 30 individual plaintiffs, of which I am one, Alveda King, Father Pavone, and others. And so in April, they asked all the lawyers for a little bit more information. They were wrestling with how can we accommodate this so that you don't have to be involved. That's all we're asking. Leave us out of it, you know? So the justices came back with to say to the government, work it out with them. So what they did was they vacated the decision, so that would put the pause button for us again, so we don't have to worry about that. And now we're waiting to hear from the appellate division what's going to happen with the attorneys. So we're wading into new waters, and what will happen to us will affect EWTN, the other cases that didn't quite get up there yet. So really there's a lot at stake. Every Catholic institution, every Christian institution in our nation is going to be affected by what happens, this outcome. So we have to storm heaven with prayers. We really do.
And we have to pray, but we have to, first of all, we have to register to vote,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
We have to make sure that we're all registered so that we can be part of the solution. What is your response, and we're hearing this, is I don't like either candidate and I'm not going to vote and that's it. And feeling as if that's the right thing to do, that's they have the right, the integrity and the righteousness to say, I'm not voting for either. What do we say to that?
Well, I mean, the Catechism tells us that we have a moral obligation to vote, first of all, and not just vote, but vote as informed voters. right? Really know the issues, know the candidates, know the platforms of the political parties, and then go and vote. And as you know, we talk about all the time, this is not anymore about voting for the lesser of two evils. It's about voting to minimize evil.
Right.
Right? And I think it's very important that Catholics understand, if you look at the demographics of going back quite a few elections, the Catholic vote has been the swing vote. I mean, we can't deny this. And so Catholics need to pray and discern and reflect. And the other part of the political landscape, I think, that I think is different and changing all the time is this whole early voting, right, which gives us a great opportunity. From what I see, we have not used that to the maximum that we're able to use it. And this year, Priests for Life, with their Get Out the Vote campaign, will be traveling around the country, doing some organizing, getting trainings, getting people, primarily Catholic, but we'll be working ecumenically, to work on getting out the vote, starting with early voting, pushing absentee ballots, and getting the Catholic vote out. And if we have an informed Catholic voter population, then we will swing the election to minimize the evil and maximize the good.
Well, thinking about this whole area, while Priests for Life doesn't endorse candidates, how do we evaluate candidates? You know, I mean, how do we consider who we're going to vote for, whether it's president or Senate or House or local elections? A lot of people think, well, local elections don't matter regarding, you know, pro-life issues and so on. But what are the principles by which we should be voting or thinking through? Do you help with that?
Yeah, well, first of all, at politicalresponsibility.com, first of all, if they want to get involved with some of the things Father Stephen said about the Drivers for Life campaign, getting out the vote, just tell us. There's a form to fill out. So we'll get the information to you. We'll tell you where the trainings will be. And then, of course, it's just a matter of, and we're going to have a C3-friendly voter guides. In other words, after the conventions, when everything's set, then with our attorneys, we'll have the C3-friendly voter guides. And what they are is, besides the abortion issues, they show where the candidates stand on other issues. You know, you just can't show abortion, so you have to have several others.
Okay.
But it'll be run by the lawyers. It'll be perfectly fine. They can go there and see that information. And, you know, like Father Stephen said, it's a question of, you know, one slate of candidates, you're going to have certain evil. They're for abortion. Some of them, you just look at their voting record. They have prior records. They make statements that there's done an abortion they don't like. Some of them, so that's pretty obvious. The other candidate, maybe that's running against them, you're not quite sure. Maybe they don't have a voting record. You're not quite sure. But if the other side is certain evil, the path they're going to go down, then it's obvious you got to vote on the other direction, because you know there's a promise and a hope of moving things in the right direction. So that's sometimes a way to kind of help discern that.
And not because we're in the ministry, but I think it's a known fact morally, a teaching of the church. This is the decisive issue of our time. Abortion is the decisive issue of our time. You know, early on you mentioned how many lost children in the population. Well, you know, we're talking about 40 million children a year worldwide, 46 million children worldwide a year that are lost. So abortion is the decisive issue of our time. And as Father Frank always says, right, if a candidate came out and said that, you know, well, I support terrorism, all right, you would eliminate him or her off the list immediately. Likewise, a candidate who supports abortion, in our minds, that should immediately disqualify that candidate.
You know, in one of the, so much good information at Priests for Life, but there's a kind of an examination of conscience that Priests for Life has. And I was like as pro-life as you can be, I thought anyway, but reading through the examination of conscience, I think there's a line that says, do you believe that the life inside the womb is equal to your life, your wife's life, your children's lives, or maybe your grandchildren's life? Do you believe that? And I looked at it and I said, I'm not sure I do, I don't know. And there's a lot of people like that, you know, and then you say, well, this is the church's teaching. And this is true just through the natural law and science. And because some people would say, yeah, that's a human life, but it's not equal to the lives out here. So when you're saying, you know, we look at these lives as the same, and that's critical for all Christian people to understand, because a lot would say, that is a human life, but it's not equal to the lives out here. The truth of the matter is, these lives in the womb, at the end of life, we're all of equal worth, value, and dignity. You
Unique,
can't
precious,
kill
and
them.
unrepeatable.
Right.
That's right.
So we have to believe they're of equal worth, value, and
From the
dignity.
moment of conception, you know,
right.
I mean, and you know, and something the train is coming down the tracks, of course, is going to be more and more the, you know, the embryonic issues, right? The embryonic life, embryonic babies. I always
Right.
call them embryonic babies, you know, because that's what we're looking at, right? More and more RU486 abortions. We talked about that in one of our shows, right? Chemical abortions becoming
Right.
more and more prevalent. And so we need to put it out there that this is human life from the moment of conception, and abortion, regardless of the method,
Right.
kills a human life.
Right. It ends the life of that child. We're going to go straight to the email. It says, where I live, we have a pretty good pro-life presence, and we turn out events like 40 Days for Life and March for Life. But sometimes I see that the ecumenical nature of these gatherings is limited. Often the impression is certain that events are Catholic and others are Protestant in nature, and the people don't always cross lines and have general support of life. Is there more that we can do to bring a more ecumenical spirit to our pro-life efforts? And this is from Bill.
Well, the beauty of Priests for Life, what a model, right? Because we
Right.
truly are ecumenical, and we really don't look at denominations. We don't look at male. We don't look at female. We don't look at those demographics, right? We are across the broad spectrum. Alveda King just renamed her
Right.
ministry Civil Rights for the Unborn.
Right.
Brian Kemper with his youth ministry. And so I think it's important. But we need to be realistic. We need to be realistic. You mentioned Tony Levatino, the doctor, the abortion doctor. I had a long talk with him and talked about, let's be real, that there are some things, all right, where Catholics and Protestants are not going to do well together. But there are many things that we can do and will do together. 40 Days for Life is a perfect example. In Albuquerque, it is an ecumenical effort. We have as many non-Catholic churches coming and taking their days and taking their hours as Catholic churches coming. So you need to be realistic, but look for the opportunities where we can work with our brothers and sisters in
You have
Christ.
to have that belief that this issue cuts across every denomination
Right.
or even non-belief. The other day I saw a little news clip, and it was this car had flipped over and was on fire, and the guy was in the car. And these guys got together and they're screaming out to everybody, "Let's go, we got to lift this car up." And the guy's saying, "My arm's under the car, it's under the car." They weren't saying, just
Right.
Catholics, we got to lift up the car. Protestants, we got to lift up the car. Jehovah's Witnesses only. No, we're not taking you. It's like anybody available. This guy's going to die.
A
Let's
human
help.
life.
And that's what
Right.
this issue
Human
is
life.
about.
Yes. Right.
This issue isn't about when do you believe baptism should take place, or what do you believe. It's like this death is about to take place. What can we do together?
Right.
You could be an atheist, whatever you are. Let's get these people saved.
Well, that's what Father Frank always says, it's,
Yeah.
it's like we're not here to discuss theology and
Right.
denominational differences, and he uses a similar example that you're home and someone collapses, the EMS guy comes to the door.
Sure,
Do you
right.
say, do you take Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Or,
Right.
what's your faith-based
Right,
thing
right.
here? No, come in, save
And
the
you gotta do
person.
what you gotta
save the
do.
person.
Right.
So we have those theological discussions later, but let's end abortion. Let's stop the
Right.
child killing
Right.
first, and bring the healing to everybody.
Let's stay about the mission. I am on the board, this is an email, I'm on the board of our local Save a Life Center in my hometown. And as a Caucasian person, what would be the best way for me to approach the African American churches in my neighborhood to ask them to help spread the pro-life message and support our local center? I've contacted a couple of churches so far, and they seem hesitant and not really open to the idea. And this is from James.
Well, Alveda King always says that the key thing here is you don't want to ask them to just come to the thing. You want them to be part of the planning.
That's good.
You got to get them from the very beginning. You don't want to say, "Oh, we're having a banquet. Why don't you come and get a table here?"
Right.
No. Would you like to help us do fill in the blank? We would like you to join us, be part of this committee, and plan with us. Then you're going to, have a better shot. You just don't want to ask them to just jump on something that's already been planned. You want them to feel integral part of it, get their ideas, make them contribute. They're part of it. And one of the things Alveda has done since the very beginning of Priests for Life, wherever she speaks, she also does these little small breakfasts with local pastors. And she used to say, "I don't care if there's just one pastor asked her to meet with. I'll have breakfast with her.
Right.
It has been so successful around the country. She has reached so many.
Right.
And actually now there's a Black pro-life coalition she's developed of other Black pro-life leaders. They come together, they share ideas. It's marvelous to see. So it's the way you approach them. You just can't send them the notice or give them a call and say,
Right.
you know, we want to come to our banquet. It has to be from the very beginning. Let's plan something together. And why don't you hear from them what they would like to plan?
Right.
You know, you get their input first.
And I think as a pregnancy medical center, just invite them to lunch at your center.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, you've done that, and Jim's met with, hey, just come on in and see what we're doing.
Yes.
You know, and they're like, and you'll do lunch. I mean, everybody's got to eat. Yeah, so come on in and just see this life-saving ministry. So with the great hope that God would, you know, hit your heart and say, my gosh, I need to be part of the solution, you know, because 80% of our clients right in downtown Birmingham, they're African American.
Right.
And you know, our staff is ecumenical, our board is ecumenical, and so they can say, "Is this Catholic?" And say, "No, just come on in and see."
We're saving babies.
right?
And the disproportionate amount of blacks, right, that are being killed in these killing centers. And I think some education, you know, gently put, loving put, not lording over. Hey, you know, did you know? And because the way we approach others is so important, right? But I think Janet's absolutely right. Encourage them to do an event. We'll help you do an event, and this is why. This is why. This is not, you know, we're not here because, you know, white babies are dying. We're here because all babies are dying. All lives matter.
Yes.
And by the way, you may want to know that it's a particular important issue, all right, for you know, your group.
And how your race is being targeted.
Right.
Right. Absolutely.
We have another email.
Well, here we go. We have my friend is 12 weeks pregnant and just found out that her baby has a deformity. The doctors are saying the child won't live more than a couple of days after birth if the pregnancy can make it to full term at all. She wants to take the doctor's advice to terminate the pregnancy so the baby and the family won't have to suffer more later. I don't know what to say to her. As a friend, should I support her? And this is from Brenda. What would
Well,
we
they
say?
will suffer more if she terminates. And we did a whole program about this. What happens here is the doctors do push for termination, but there's a really beautiful solution. It's called Perinatal hospice.
Right.
It was developed by Dr. Byron Calhoun. Actually, he brought it over from Sweden. It's all around the country now. They can go to our Priest Life website for information. But in my book, Recall Abortion, I did a whole chapter on this. And I showed testimonies of women who took the advice of the termination. And they felt it was a double trauma. They lost that child, and then they felt responsible. But the Dr. Calhoun way is, you take that pregnancy as far along as you can go, you deliver the baby, do everything to necessitate the baby, and even if the baby only lives but a few moments, you have a clergy person there, you baptize that baby, name the baby, have a beautiful funeral, burial. It's proper closure. And I use the example of Senator Rick Sansorum's baby, Bella. Bella has trisomy 18. She shouldn't have lived like this baby more than a few days or a few weeks. Well, Bella just celebrated her 8th birthday. I saw a beautiful little video on Facebook of Senator Santorum dancing with her, you know? She was sitting in a chair, joy in her face. Don't put limits on what God can do. And determination will make that mother's heart be broken. She will need a healing because then she feels some responsibility. Put it in God's hands. Trust in the Lord. Go, but get a different doctor. Switch doctors. You know, don't go sit with someone who's pursuing
We
the
worked this
termination.
through with a girl who came to our pregnancy medical center, and she had been to some other place. They were encouraging her to have an abortion. We sat down with her and spoke with her, and as we spoke with her about the humanity of this, how difficult it is, what you're going through and so on, but carry this child, and she said, you know, what you're saying is true, and I knew all this, I just needed to hear this. So we got her perinatal hospice care. Her main concern was she didn't have money to bury the baby. I said, is that really your chief concern? She goes, well, I don't have money to bury the baby. She was thinking about abortion. I said, we'll pay for this, and we'll do this. So she went through the perinatal care. She birthed this baby, took pictures of the baby, as you said. Baby died shortly thereafter. We had a wake, and the baby was there in the casket, beautiful baby. She had 3 other children with her. A whole bunch of women were there, happened to be an African American. And boy, you could just feel in that room. I was wondering how many had had abortions or how many had miscarried, because it was a lot of stuff going around. And that mama, she was weeping for that little baby. And then when we were getting ready to close that casket, she got up in front of that casket and she called her other 3 children up, and she called them up, and then she pointed to that baby and said, this is your sister. this is your sister. Saying to each one, this is your sister.
Right.
And they wept, those little children. But they had, this is your,
Right.
you know, we got to see her. We got to,
And
one of
she
the most
was,
powerful
she
moments
was
I've
a
ever
little
experienced.
girl, and you know, and she was
And I think
dressed
all the
so
other women there, no
beautiful.
matter what they experienced, it was like they knew it was right, and maybe they were vicariously saying, I want to get it right, or whatever. I don't know
Those
what.
children
Powerful.
remember that for the rest of their
your
lives, as
sister.
opposed to a woundedness for the rest of their lives,
Right.
And we live in a culture, all right, where, I mean, can we really trust medicine when you have the pressure of managed health care, you know, and insurance, and, you know, and we've all experienced people who've had a misdiagnosis, a prenatal misdiagnosis, a false positive. And so I just really think, as the one doctor, Maureen, said in the video, let God be God.
That's
and then
right.
trust in God.
And we think that we're doing the most compassionate thing is when we're saying, we don't want you to suffer. Well, suffering is part of living, and suffering is part of dying, and it makes us human. It makes us who we are.
And how ludicrous that we're going to eliminate suffering by killing a baby.
Right. Like, what is the logic of that?
Right.
Janet, give us a closing thought because we're going to our final break. Just anything you want to share with the people.
Well, I just, you know, want them to, if they're ever, know of these cases like this, you know, like rape, incest, life of the mother, fetal anomaly. These are all those cases where everyone says, oh, we should allow abortion. I did write a book called Recall Abortion. It's available at the Religious Catalog. I took testimonies of women that went down that road, were pushed into the abortion, and showed how it didn't solve their problem, created other problems. And then I took cases of people who gave birth to that child and had good consequences. So there's always good information out there, and we have to empower people with that information. And we also have on our website pro-life docs listing if they're looking for a good doctor. And you can't forget the Pope Paul VI Institute too, with NAPRO technology. So there's a lot of information out there. And if you hear something bad like this from one doc, just go to get another opinion or call us and we'll help you find it. Really.
Janet, Father Steve, thank you so very
Thank you
much.
for
We
having
thank
us.
God for Priests for Life. Give Father Frank our warm regards.
I will.
And we thank God for your wonderful, wonderful ministry.
Thank you.
Well, we'll be right back, and when we come back, Father Joseph will be with us, and we're going to hear from Joan Lewis also. So please don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, you know that you are an important part of the family, and did you know that you could join us live here on At Home? All you have to do is contact the Pilgrimage Department. All you do is email pilgrimages@ewtn.com or give them a jingle at 205-271-2966. You could have met Father Stephen and Janet and Father Joseph.
And other live people.
And other
They're out
live
there.
people, yeah. So it's fun. And it's really wonderful here in Irondale, Alabama. And you can always take the trip up to Hanceville. Well, right now we're going to go straight to Rome to hear from Joan. Joan, what do you have for us today?
Well, greetings from Rome to all of you at home. And today, while Janet and Father Stephen were talking about defending in life, the Pope had a message for participants in a congress in Rome on guarding life. The conference was taking place at Rome's famous Gemelli Hospital, and the theme was Guarding Life, the Perinatal Hospice, a scientific, ethical, and human response to prenatal diagnoses. In fact, this hospice was opened at Gemelli Hospital within the context of the Extraordinary Jubilee of Mercy. And the conference was called to present the results of studies done, prenatal studies done, especially in the diagnosis of newborns, those with psychological disorders. Now, the Agostino Gemelli Hospital is a very huge, big hospital in Rome. It serves as the teaching hospital for the medical center of the Catholic University of the Sacred Heart, the largest in Italy. And it takes its name from its founder, a Franciscan physician and psychologist, Agostino Gemelli. Now, in his message to the group, the Pope expressed his hope for the continued success of this project, this hospice. And he said, in the service of the person, in the progress of medical science, in constant reference to perennial human and Christian values. And very importantly, The Pope said he spoke of these efforts in seeking to respond in the best possible way to the situation of the child with grave pathologies, to respond with the greatest love, spreading a concept of science that is directed to service, not selection. And he did praise a lot of progress made, positive achievements, but he invited the participants to, quote, a daily commitment done with courage and love to enacting God's plan for life by being close to those who suffer and distancing yourself from the throwaway culture that proposes only paths of death. He said they, the paths of death people, think to eliminate suffering by eliminating those who suffer. Wow, powerful words. But time's up here, so back to you at home.
Thanks so much, Joan. Another powerful report, really fits in so beautifully with our show today. Good to see you, Father.
Good to see you. And I was thinking of two stories related to the end of the last segment, as well as Joan's words. And one was regarding a couple that worked here at EWTN, Robert Rodriguez and his wife Jennifer. And you maybe know their story, that they had been childless for a number of years. The sisters had prayed for them. They conceived a child. But during its development, the diagnosis was that there was a deformity with this child, that it would only live for a short time outside of the womb. And they had actually had psychologists that were directed toward them to help them to bond with that child for the short time that the child would be lived. Well, Jennifer continued to go to Vespers with the friars. She received benediction every night. They were praying to St. John. Well, at that time, it was Pope John Paul II, who had just recently died. And shortly before the child was born, the doctor thought he had the ultrasound mixed up because the child was healed in the womb. So we also believe in the divine, work of God in these events. And the other is of Chiara Corbella Petrillo. Do you know her story? Her story is told in Sophia Press, has a book about her story. And she and her husband had conceived 2 children who lived just for a short time outside of the womb. They bonded with those children. They loved those children. They named them David and Mary. And then the 3rd child they conceived, Francisco, was healthy and normal, but then Chiara, his mother, developed cancer, but she decided to postpone treatment. Francisco was born healthy. But it's a beautiful story of love. It's like Joan was saying, that we seek to eliminate suffering by eliminating, the child.
Right. And how Janet shared, she said, then we just have 2 traumas. Right? And which is really true. You just like double the suffering as opposed to walking through it knowing you've done everything that you could have done. And we shared about this the last time about miscarriages. And we would always tell our clients and even our daughters and our daughter-in-laws, you are that baby's mother right now. And nobody is promised a child, and every time we all assume just because I'm pregnant I'm going to have a healthy baby and everything's going to be great and wonderful, but you're that baby's mother right now, no matter what is happening, and so at that point in time you bond, you love, you heal, you pray, and you do everything that you can.
We've had, I believe it's 8 miscarriages among our children. So we have 16 grandchildren with us and 8 with the Lord. And as Joy was sharing, from that very moment we heard of, shortly after the conception or whatever, that they were aware, we would always have that conversation. You're a mother now. You're not going to become a mother, you're a mother now. And we're not promised that this baby will come to fruition outside of the womb. It's of equal worth and value now, in or out of the womb. And your call is just simply to love this baby every moment, every day. You're not responsible for the outcome of this baby's health in totality, whether it comes to fruition or not outside of the womb. And that's been helpful, in the long run, because sometimes you feel like it's a failure on your end, that this baby was miscarried or whatever. No, you were faithful to be a mother for as long as God called you to be a mother to this child. We thank God for you. We're proud of you. This is our grandchild. We named these grandchildren. It's just a whole nother view, isn't it? A whole nother philosophy.
It's about populating souls for the kingdom of heaven, right? And so parents are entrusted with that life, and maybe for a short time, maybe for a longer time. We don't know, but we know that the ultimate end, we have no lasting city, right? And that's why we always have hope. Like St. Zélie understood that the children that she had lost in their childhood, that they were little saints in heaven now. And so our hope is in eternal life, and that these little children, that just as Jesus said, let the little children come to me, so he has mercy on them and he welcomes them into the kingdom of heaven too.
And we go from there to the end of life, to the aged, to seniors, to those who are suffering in a variety of ways. You don't lose your sanctity and your worth and your value and your beauty. It might be physical things that are deteriorating. I mean, I like getting older. I don't like aging. You know what I mean? Like getting older, there's a lot of good stuff too, but the aging process is really rough. But this is the greatness of our gospel, of the gospel of life, isn't it? That every life is sacred, should be cherished and defended and protected. This is what will transform the world.
Yeah, and it helps people to recognize their own values so they don't do these horrible acts, that we see. I think often those are sometimes as people with mental problems that are involved in these terrible, horrible acts. But sometimes they just don't recognize their own dignity too. And they don't realize their own worth. And so they just want to, do these horrible things. So.
And in the throwaway culture of death, we're saying the assessment you're making is correct. But our view is that you are not precious and beautiful and valuable because you're perfect physically or emotionally or mentally, but simply because you are human. Father, would you give us a blessing?
Father, we thank you for the gift of our own lives and for the faith by which we turn to you now as trusting children. We ask you to comfort those mothers and fathers who have lost children in whatever way that took place, to give them consolation and hope, and to welcome all of these little ones into the glory of your kingdom. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Well, God bless you. Isn't it wonderful to be a human person? Isn't it grand to be a Christian, to be a Catholic? Remember, life, marriage, and the family will prevail. God bless you and all of your loved ones. Bye now.